Thank you so much, Alex, for warming up the crowd and for that wonderful introduction. I actually live in Miami. I live in Coconut Grove, moved here 4 years ago from California. We also opened up a Darktrace office in Brickell, so you'll have some local people here as well. But what I'm really excited about is I get to talk about something I'm really passionate about, which is how we apply artificial intelligence to the challenge of cyber. But before I get to that, I'm even more excited this weekend for the Miami Grand Prix. Darktrace is actually the official sponsor of McLaren Racing. And I think one thing that I've loved about working with McLaren is they actually really do understand the importance and the role artificial intelligence plays in cybersecurity. In fact, how many of you will be at the race this weekend? Number of hands, and somebody new will be going, apparently, based on this raffle, so that's going to be exciting. But if you're walking down pit lane, get the opportunity, poke your head in the McLaren garage. You're going to be amazed at how much technology they bring trackside. They, in real time, put up data centers in each of those garages. And there's really important information that's streaming real time from trackside back, in McLaren's case, to their Woking headquarters. And they have this amazing room that looks almost like a spaceship. And they have analysts receiving that data and analyzing it about the car, every aspect of the car, the performance, how things are working on the track. And all of that information is secured by Darktrace. So McLaren has been an absolutely amazing partner, and I wish Oscar and Lando the best of luck at the race this weekend. But now let's jump in to the topic of the moment, which is generative AI. And it was interesting, last week I was in San Francisco at RSA, and I had the opportunity to speak to many CISOs and security practitioners. And what was really striking to me is every conversation I had, there was definitely talk about generative AI in it. But what was really interesting and caught me a bit off guard is I felt like there were two very extreme different camps. There was one camp that was very nervous and anxious and worried about generative AI. And I kept trying to figure out, okay, where's this anxiousness coming from? There was one CISO I spoke with, and he actually said that at a moment's notice, his executive team and board said he better be ready to shut down any and all use of generative AI across this big global enterprise in case something was going to go horribly wrong. But mostly, I think a lot of the anxiousness is justified. It was really about how are the attackers going to be using generative AI, and we're going to give some examples here today of that. But there was also equally a number of people I spoke with who were just so excited. What is this technology going to be capable of? How can it augment our human security teams? And they said some of their boards of directors and C-suite were coming to them saying, can you help us understand how we can embrace this for strategic advantage? Almost as if it's a race. In fact, I had a few people come to me and say, how fast can Darktrace incorporate this technology to complement what you already do so well? Are we talking days? Are we talking weeks? What is it going to be? So there was a very broad spread of conversations. And I think that's just reflective of how early we are in generative AI. And I thought that Rob Joyce did a great job summarizing it in a simple quote, which is, buckle up. Generative ChatGPT is just the very, very beginning. But there was another thing that really struck me about the conversations, and that was that there was, I think up until now, there's been a bit of almost a denial of the use of artificial intelligence in attacks. Yet many of us know that nation states have actually been using AI in attacks for quite some time. If I even look at Darktrace's own history, we run an AI research center. And in that center, we've been embracing offensive AI, not to attack people, but to actually make our AI autonomous defenses stronger, faster, better, more effective. And for those of you who have worked with generative adversarial networks, or GANs, that's how they work. you basically take one AI and you put it on offense, and it keeps learning and getting better. And you put another AI, a self-learning AI, on defense. And as the attacks get better, the defense gets better. And they both lift each other up. It's quite different than other techniques that are out there. And I'll go into that in just a minute. So I think, what are the two questions I can see everybody in this room probably starting to think through? Which is, at the pace that generative AI is evolving, right? ChatGPT 3 came out, next thing you know, there's ChatGPT 4 and already talk of 5 and OpenGPT. It's just moving so very quickly. Will the security techniques keep up? And the next thing is, how can our security teams leverage this technology for good? So when I started looking into this whole area of generative AI, I started thinking, really, at its heart, isn't ChatGPT a new way for humans to better engage and query information and use that information to make decisions and take action? This isn't the first time that we've had a challenge of figuring out how to best query large amounts of information. So I went back to the beginning of my career, and as Alex mentioned, I started in the database industry. I worked for Oracle for nearly a decade. And that was the first implementation of SQL, right? Structured query language. So you had data, you put structure around it, you put it in a database, and then you had to be a bit of a geek, and you had to actually know your fields of data and how to write a query to get the right results back. Then the 1990s, I thought was a huge step change, because although I understood the value of putting structure around information, 80% plus of the world's information is human information. Why apply structure to it? Was that really necessary? And that's when search came out. And search was finally a much more natural way for everybody to be able to query large amounts of information. And it all started with keyword search, and then there was another big step change with conceptual search, right? Where you just think of an idea, think of a concept, put it in a search query, and get meaningful results back. I think that a lot of people didn't realize is artificial intelligence actually also got a nice kind of human interface to it in 2011 with NLP, or natural language processing. And that actually started to break down this concept of a black box. And NLP is still very valuable and with us today, but probably the most closely aligned with what we're seeing now with chatbots and ChatGPT becoming widely available. But it's moving at such a head-spinning pace. On December 5th, ChatGPT surpassed 1 million users. They had only launched the app 5 days earlier. That's the fastest uptake of any application in history. And to me, it means people were craving this type of interaction with all of the world's information in such a human-friendly way. But ChatGPT now has surpassed 1 billion users. The last stat I saw was like 1.16 billion. This is just insane, the adoption pace. We've never seen anything like it. So what is the impact going to be? We started doing research actually on December 5th, because we're like, wow, this passed 1 million users. We better start seeing what's happening. And we looked at 30 days, attacks 30 days prior and 30 days after. And the first thing we noticed was actually the increase in linguistic sophistication of phishing attacks. And it makes sense because those are language-based attacks. From January to March of this year, though, we saw a 135% increase in social engineering attacks. That's a significant increase in a short period of time. But this simultaneously happened while this linguistic complexity got better. And so then we tried to survey people and said, what do you use as a human to try to spot when you're being scammed, when you're being phished, when there's something like invoicing fraud? And what people said that they use is they basically were looking for things like poor grammar, misspellings. Now that all goes away because ChatGPT creates perfect phishing attacks, perfect social engineering attacks. So now it's going to be much harder for us just to keep training employees to be able to spot this. So this leads me to thinking about how we're going to have to apply AI. It's no longer going to be humans against AI. So what are the different AI techniques that we could be applying? And I will say, not all AI is created equally, but most importantly, just like any technology, you really have to give thought to what type of AI am I using? What is it training off of? What is it good at? And where are the weaknesses going to be? And so I'd like to walk you through a brief analysis of that. So today, the most broadly adopted use is by things like XDR, threat intelligence feeds, incident response systems, and they all use a very similar technique. And that is they look at attack data and attacker behavior. They summarize the confirmed compromises around those attacks and attacker behavior, typically upload it in a cloud, and this treats it very much like a big data problem. What they then do is use what's called supervised learning to train off of that summarized, confirmed compromise and attack behavior set of data. And what this is really good at is for any known attack or variation of that known attack, it very quickly, with a high degree of confidence, can say, this is the attack, this is the attacker, this is the attack behavior we're seeing, and this is the action you can take to counter it. Where are its weaknesses? The weaknesses is not your data. It's attacker data and attacker behavior, and it's very good at spotting known threats, but not necessarily targeted novel threats, advanced persistent threats, or the things that we're seeing created by AutoGPT. So that takes us to the middle category. Now, this middle category, Darktrace isn't the only one in it, but there's very few in it. Most of you probably are familiar with DeepMind. In fact, there was a great interview with DeepMind a few weeks ago on 60 Minutes that if you haven't seen it, it's worth watching. They use the same similar technique Darktrace does, and there's a reason for that. This technique actually comes out of Cambridge in the UK, and it's very different than the big data Silicon Valley models that emerge here. It's called self-learning. And actually what it does is instead of looking at a big data problem, we call it, it looks at your data problem. It only learns from your business data. That's all it knows. So basically the AI drops into your environment. Your data remains your data. It doesn't get uploaded to any third-party cloud, so you always have full control over it. And it includes all of your data, because to be effective, it has to see everything. So it actually learns the pattern of life of your employees, your business processes, and all the technology, applications, and devices that are connecting to it. So this means everything from endpoint to email, to network, to cloud, to IoT, and even if you're in an industry like manufacturing, the SCADA environments on your manufacturing plant floor. It looks at all of that, and it actually understands the patterns of life that are normal for you, and it then figures out when something goes off the rails. Now, I call this self-learning plus because I don't think anyone should be a purist about AI. You should use other techniques in combination. So we also use a bit of deep learning. We also have used some supervised to learn from human threat analysts. But at its heart, the thing that really sets this second category apart is the ability to learn self. The other thing it's good at is it's learning in real time. It's not working off of historical data. So for autonomous response, it could respond very quickly. But like anything else, it doesn't do everything. It's not a panacea. So we get to the third column. So what is this new era of GPT and large learning models? Where does that fit into the security stack? What is its source of data? It's massive. It's the world's data. How does it learn? It's pre-trains, which does mean it's static. And that's why we keep seeing new training sets coming out, right? Because the old one gets old and then there's a new pre-trained data set. What is it good at? It's looking at patterns across all human language. It looks at the world's data, and it uses very sophisticated deep learning to do that. So now let's actually look at what this could look like in practice for your security and your IT teams. I'd like to walk through an example. ChatGPT is prompt-based. And what that means, you literally just get the little prompt at the top as you see here on the screen. And in this particular case, our security and IT teams have been alerted that a device has made an HTTP connection to a rare endpoint. And by the way, this is very common, right? All of our security and IT teams probably get this kind of alert on a daily basis. So let's start with the security analyst. What if a security analyst was actually going to interface with ChatGPT? They would probably say, is this malicious? And then ChatGPT would start performing its operations and eventually make a recommendation. And in this particular case, one of the actions it recommends to the security analyst is to disconnect the device from the network and perform a thorough malware scan. Now, it also provides some other context and information around it. But now let's change roles. Now let's pretend we're in the IT organization and we're an IT engineer. And we get the prompt and we type in, is this legitimate? And the reason that an IT engineer would probably type that in instead is, unlike the analyst who's actually looking for bad guys and making sure that nobody is taken over somebody's account or device, IT is always trying to keep end users happy and keep systems up and running. So here, ChatGPT says, check the purpose of the connection and verify, review logs or network monitoring tools. Now, I'm not here to say one is right or one is wrong, but what's interesting is human bias plays a factor, right? Depending on if you ask for the same HTTP rare connection, whether it was malicious or whether it was legitimate, it's like leading the witness, so to speak. And you get a different result, and now you've got two opposing actions. The reason I raise this is I know a lot of people focus on the really kind of sexy stuff, the hallucinations, right? The misinformation that could come out of it. And I'm sure that everything will get better over time. I'm more worried about the workflow. We all know we run lean teams in security operations centers and in IT organizations. I worry about the fact that people are going to be querying this with these prompt-based things. They could be on wild goose chases. They could be given conflicting actions. So I think one of the actions for all of us is think through these workflows. How does this work with the existing security stack? And how do we make sure that this doesn't become a productivity drain? So now let's switch gears for a moment. How can attackers use generative AI? Now, we have a chief product officer at Darktrace. His name is Max Heinemeyer. He started his career as a very good ethical hacker. And so he's been using AutoGPT in our labs in a secure environment, and he decided he wanted to see how easy or how difficult it would be to turn AutoGPT into a social engineering phishing AI. To protect all of you in this room and everyone in the world, we selected ourselves, Darktrace, as a company, as the target. And I'm going to actually play a short recording of the actual code that was generated and what the attack looked like. And then we'll do a bit of a debrief. So let's go ahead and play the demo.
Let's see how a threat actor can use AutoGPT using Darktrace as a target. AutoGPT starts by Googling Darktrace to search all associated platforms, looking for employees. It doesn't find any on the company website, so it checks LinkedIn, where it finds a high-value target, Marcus Fowler, CEO of Darktrace Federal. Then, it creates a phishing email to target him based on what it has learned from his profile. And all the attacker needs to do is give the AI the initial instructions. The agent can even automate the process of finding good, available phishing domains. It could probably go beyond this and register them, if given permission and funds, and host content on there if tasked to do. The possibilities are endless for how AutoGPT could augment attackers, and who knows what could come next.
So the answer that we reached was that it didn't take much effort at all. In fact, there were 3 easy prompts that Max entered in and was able to instantaneously create a quite powerful, quite effective social engineering AI attack against Darktrace. One of the things that really struck me and I found really fascinating was the fact that when it first tried to target Darktrace employees, it went to the website. And when it didn't find enough information to select a viable target, it pivoted. It went to LinkedIn, created itself a LinkedIn account, and actually started going through LinkedIn. Now, I know we have at least one lawyer in the room. Do we have other lawyers in the room? The thing that lawyers will say, any good lawyers in the room, the thing that some people will say, LinkedIn has a terms of service, and this would violate, scanning and scraping LinkedIn would violate terms of service. I'm here to tell you, I don't think cyber criminals really care about the terms of service. So while legally that's accurate, I don't think it's going to hold up here. So it was very interesting I made the pivots. But then at the end, when it actually decided to do this properly, I could register a new domain. I can go to GoDaddy. And it started looking and saying, darktrace.com is taken, darktrace.net is taken, but darktrack.net isn't. And that's going to look close enough. And it actually was set to send that attack to Marcus Fowler from that spoof domain. And we actually had to slow this down when they first showed it to me. I'm like, this is going too fast. As a human, I can't keep up with what it's doing. So we had to slow this attack down to show it to all of you. This happened in split seconds. Absolutely miraculous how fast it took place. All right, I hate to be doom and gloom, and I'm not. I'm definitely a glass half full kind of person. So what I'd like to tell all of you is there is an absolute silver lining in this. We then decided to see, would Darktrace's self-learning AI stand up against these attacks? So let's take a quick look.
Let's pivot to the defender's perspective now. Darktrace can stop these novel attacks, including those generated by AutoGPT. We didn't have to update any of Darktrace's capabilities to stop these new AutoGPT attacks. Our self-learning AI is already equipped to handle them. Darktrace Prevent Attack Surface Management can detect spoofed domains. If an attacker sets up a brand impersonation attack, Darktrace will identify the spoofed domain and prevent the first email from ever being sent from it. When it comes to malicious emails themselves, Darktrace Email identifies email attacks before they even reach the inbox. For example, let's look at this phishing email sent to Marcus Fowler, CEO of Darktrace Federal. Our self-learning AI analyzes the sender, the recipients, the tone and sentiment, and hundreds of other factors to determine that something doesn't look right. Then it neutralizes the attack even on the first encounter. This was just one example, targeting one individual, but imagine attackers carrying out this type of attack at scale with the use of AI.
So that's the silver lining. The good news is with self-learning AI, it automatically stopped this. In fact, I just made a mental note to myself. I didn't call Marcus yesterday to tell him that we actually used AI to target him and attack him. But the reality is Marcus didn't need to know because the AI actually intercepted this. It saw the spoof domain. It actually stopped the email from actually reaching Marcus's inbox. But I think the bigger lesson here is the part at the very end that this just happened to be like we just targeted one person, one attack, one defense. The scary thing is this can now, these social engineering attacks, these very sophisticated phishing attacks, they can search, they can look for vulnerabilities, the AI can figure out various ways in, and it can do it fast and at scale with a lot of accuracy. So we're going to have to really think, what does this mean? What does this mean for each of you? What does this mean for the industry? And I think what's really important here is you've all made a lot of investments in security tools. And a lot of those are very effective, and they're saving you and your company every single day. But a lot of those are going to fall in that first bucket, that supervised XDR, threat intelligence, confirmed compromises, historical attack set. And you still need that. And that should be the basis of your security stack. But with this age of AutoGPT and how fast this is evolving, as well as just human error, misconfigurations, as well as just novel attacks, insider threat, that second column is going to complement your stack and help complete it. But I also think, and I know for Darktrace, we're looking very seriously at how this combination of what we do today, your data with that self-learning AI that's going to protect you against these novel, evolving auto-GPT style attacks, as well as, by the way, it protects you against everything else and known attacks, and it complements your XDR solutions. But we're going to combine that with generative AI and the world's data to help everybody secure the new era of AI. With that, I thank you for your time, and I've been asked to leave a few minutes, if we have a few minutes for Q&A, and I'm happy to take any questions. Yes?
How do you accomplish the integration between the email systems as an attack platform in this example with Darktrace?
Yeah, so the question is, how do we combine this email attack vector with Darktrace? So one of the things I mentioned earlier, I think a lot of times, maybe because of Gartner Magic Quadrants, Darktrace often is thought of as a network detection and response. And we did absolutely start. That's the first place we applied AI. But as I mentioned with self-learning AI, what's nice about self-learning AI is it is a single platform solution in that it's all about just bringing the AI algorithms to the data. And because we bring the algorithms to wherever the data lives, the AI actually analyzes those emails, just like it analyzes network traffic, it analyzes the machine-to-machine communications and SCADA devices, it analyzes cloud data. So actually, we've done email. I think we launched our email product back in 2019. We just did a major upgrade to it. It's top rated on Gartner Peer Insights with a score of 4.8. We have over 3,000 customers using it amongst our 8,000 plus customers. And it's amazingly powerful. This works today already within the product suite. Any other questions? Great. Well, thank you so much and enjoy your conference.